Hello everybody, welcome to my channel where the things that inspire us makes us learn and makes us grow. So this is my review of Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. I approach film criticism differently because I am a literature professor. I taught in the academy for over 20 years, and since that is my background, my approach to critiquing film is from the perspective of literary criticism. You might be wondering why. Well, first of all, movies in themselves are in essence literature because they're still based on the written word. What is that? It's the screenplay. So what you see on screen is still based on something that is written down. Okay? So we have a script. So a movie is still essentially a work of literature. Now, one aspect of literature which is quite interesting is the ability of stories to immerse us, where we get engaged in the story, wherein we identify ourselves with certain characters, we're affected by what happens to them emotionally, and we grow with the characters, and we get lost in the book. Okay, we get lost in the story. And the great works of literature are those works which have the ability to sustain that immersion as we continue reading. And this is one aspect that our directors of movies have forgotten. We have experienced watching a movie, and sometimes certain scenes would take us off the movie. Like there are certain logical gaps, or there are certain problems with the special effects, right? For example, which really takes us off or distracts us from being fully immersed in the story. Now, the question is, does Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny immerse us in the story? From my personal opinion, yes, it is immersive. However, what takes me out of the film is not really some questionable special effects like the de-aging thing. It's not really that. Because the de-aging thing is a concern that many film critics have been complaining about. It's really the length of the movie. Certain sequences are just too long, particularly the prologue where the story opens with Indy finding himself at the end of the Second World War, trying to stop a train in order to save the artifacts that are meant for Hitler. Okay, so they could have shaved off something like 5 minutes and it would have been better. Just like The Last Crusade. I feel that the opening scene overextended itself. Another thing is the second act. The second act was too long. Even the chase scene in Tangier was a bit too long. And it is easy to doze off. It is easy for the audience minds to wander off when things get too long or too dragging. And that's how I found myself watching the second act of the movie. Now, the third act is great. I love the third act a lot. Okay, the third act is pure Indiana Jones, which brings me back to the time when Steven Spielberg was director. So, what could have made the film better? Well, aside from the fact that there are certain scenes that could have been shaven off, it would have benefited the movie if there were more quiet moments where the movie is allowed to breathe, and these moments are used for character development, particularly the character of Helena, juxtaposed with Professor Jones. Because the story really focuses on how their personalities bounce off each other, how they learn from each other, most especially Helena learning from Indy, and how they grow as characters. Did they grow as characters? Yes, they did. But I wish they delve more deeply into that. Okay? And shortening the action sequences would have granted opportunity for these characters to grow, to make the story more engaging. So there. Another aspect that could have improved the movie greatly is if the camera stood back, okay, and let the action scenes flow so that the audience can understand what is happening. The reason is the editing in the action sequences were quite fast or too fast, which is typical of many blockbusters these days, that it's difficult to follow the rhythm, okay, of characters hitting one another, which is found in those encounters of Indiana Jones when he would be dealing with Nazis or any of the henchmen of the villain. So it would have been better if the camera would have stood back so that we could really see the flow of the action sequences as they're happening. And this is something that I miss because Steven Spielberg, when he directs action sequences, he would really show the full breadth and scope of how a particular movement evolves into another movement. So there is this logical flow that an audience can easily understand, which I kind of missed in the Dial of Destiny. How I wish that the action sequences were staged like in John Wick 4, because what makes John Wick great is that whenever characters fight one another, no matter how fast, no matter how frenetic the action sequences are, there is a sort of a ballet to it. It's like a dance, okay? And you understand how the action flows. The action sequences were too tight when they were shot. So how I wish that the action sequences were allowed to breathe, okay? So that we could easily follow them. Other than these comments that I have, the film is great. Well, not really great. It's good, okay? It's the fourth best Indiana Jones film next to The Last Crusade. So what I really love about this film is how it ties the previous movies lovingly, okay, into this final adventure of Harrison Ford as Indiana Jones. So the Dial of Destiny integrated certain story aspects of the Crystal Skull into the motivations, into the character development of Indy, and his particular state at the beginning of the film, which continued to haunt him throughout the entire film in the Dial of Destiny. So because of this, I have gained a little bit more appreciation of the Crystal Skull. So that is my review. Please subscribe and like my channel, and I hope that we will have more adventures together as we learn not only about films or TV series or movies, but about life itself. So thank you, and God bless.